Discover the 5 types of solar installer. My advice on this has changed over the years. Go back 2 or 3 years and I said there were 3 types of solar installer. The really cheap guys, avoid. The really expensive guys, avoid. The guys in the middle, go for them. But as the solar market has matured, I've changed my advice. And now there are 5 types of solar installer. The first type of solar installer that I see out there, these are the guys that sell the absolute cheapest solar systems on the market. I'm not going to go into detail here. If you buy the absolute cheapest of anything, you know the story. It's going to be using cheap hardware. It's going to be installed at a very low cost, so it's highly likely to be rushed. You're highly likely to have problems with it. It's not very likely to last very long. That's just common sense. So the first type of solar installer is the guys that only go on price and they offer the absolute cheapest prices on the market. My advice, avoid those guys. The second type of solar installer is what I call the budget guys. These guys are cheap, don't get me wrong, but they're also pretty good. Now these guys didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, really cheap was really crap. These guys, they're not the cheapest, but they are really good value. How do they do that? They're really efficient. They've got really efficient systems. They buy in bulk, but they still buy good quality brand name gear, and they install very efficiently. Now, this is more of a kind of Jetstar service or a Tiger Air service. Your plane's not going to fall out of the sky. Your solar system is unlikely to go up in smoke. You're getting a good system at a good price, but don't expect them to hold your hand. Don't expect them to come back every time you've got a slight question about your system. Don't expect a huge variety of hardware. Don't expect it to be customized. You're going to get, boom, probably a 6.6 kilowatt system on your roof very efficiently, and that's what you're getting for. If you're price conscious and you like a good bargain, then hunting down these guys, you can end up with a really good value system on your roof. The third type of solar installer, these are the guys I call the happy medium. If you come to my site, most of the guys on the site are this happy medium. They'll give you a really good value system, but they won't be the cheapest. You'll pay a bit more than the really cheap guys. These are kind of middle of the road. They've got low overheads because they're generally local. They've been doing this a long time. They get a good deal on their hardware, but they will take the time to come out to your home, to have discussions with you. If you've got a problem or a query, they'll have the time and the money to come back and talk to you. But because they're low overhead and because they're local and because they don't spend a whole heap on marketing, you're going to get good hardware at a good price, not a really cheap price, but a really reasonable price that you should both be happy with. And these are the middle of the range guys. So they're keenly priced, but not super efficient and not super expensive. They're the guys that I try really hard to recommend, and generally they're what you'll get through Solar Quotes. The fourth type of solar installer I'm going to call the Craftsman. These are guys that love solar, that have usually been in the game a long time. Generally, they only install the really good gear, the kind of BMW style gear. This would be LG, SunPower, stuff like that. Fronius SMA inverters, Solar Edge, Enphase. They install really high quality gear and they really take their time over the install. I call them Craftsmen. If you want to pay more for really personal service, for a beautifully installed system, or if you've got a really difficult install, you've got a weird house, you've got a heritage house, the aesthetics is really important, these are the guys to go for. You will pay more, but you won't get ripped off, and you'll be supporting these real craftsmen that love solar and only install the best. The fifth type of solar installer. These guys are basically rip-off merchants. Sometimes they install absolute crap. Sometimes they install really good systems, but the common thing is they charge through the nose. I've seen a system that should cost $7,000 being sold for over $20,000. Generally, they get away with that because you don't get multiple quotes. Doorknockers are probably the worst culprits for this. They employ, because they've got such big margins, they're selling a $7,000 system for $15,000, $20,000. They can afford to employ brilliant salesmen. And I don't mean brilliant in a good way, I mean brilliant in they're brilliant at getting you to sign that contract. So if you get one of these amazing salesmen around your house, and he convinces you to sign up for a solar system there and then, under Australian consumer law, you have a cooling off period. Please exercise that cooling off period. You can always come back, no matter what he said. You can always come back to that deal if it was good, but exercise it, get other quotes, just make sure you're not getting ripped off. The really bad guys will sell absolute crap at the stupid high prices, and that's the worst of both worlds. You're getting a terrible system and you're paying through the nose. The not so bad guys will sell really good gear, but because they're banking on you not getting other quotes, they will charge you this, super duper margin because they've got to pay the sales guy as well. So that's the fifth type of solar installer. The really, really expensive that kind of pray and hope that you're not going to get multiple quotes. I don't have those guys on my books if I can help it. If I find out they are on my books, they get kicked off, but we try really hard to keep those guys away from solar quotes. So that's the 5 types of solar installer. 1, the absolute cheapest, crap solar, avoid. Number 2, the cheap but pretty good. This is a no-frills service, but you will get good hardware well installed on your roof, but don't expect customizations, don't expect a lot of choice, and don't expect an enormous amount of customer service. Then you've got number 3, the middle of the road guys. They're keenly priced, they're going to get you a good system at a good price and good hardware, but it's a fair price. It's a fair price, but a good price. These are the guys that I like to push through solar quotes. I also have the cheap but good guys, but most of them are the middle of the road guys that are going to give you a really good system, a really good price, and good solid service. Then you've got what I call the Craftsman. If you like the best of the best, you want a beautiful install, you've got a difficult install, you only want the best hardware. These guys are expensive, but they care so much about the install and what they install. You'll be delighted with the system and it will look amazing on your roof. That's the Craftsman. They charge more, but you get what you pay for. And then the 5th type is just the guys that are just way too expensive and can't justify it. They prey on the fact that you won't get multiple quotes, and usually it's a cold phone call or a cold door knock, or a cold phone call followed by a door knock. They come into your home, they're amazing persuasive salesmen because they're on a massive commission. My advice, avoid those guys. If you want to read about this in more detail, check the link in the description.